Now, when they go before the planning board, is it the planning board's obligation to make sure that the affordable housing aspects in the plan, or is it, for instance, when Phase 6 came up before the planning board, was it their responsibility to say, yes, you could, these are the units you're going to build, this percentage needs to be affordable?
No, there wasn't any requirement at that time,
but that was just recent. That was just within the last few years, Phase 6, right?
No, that goes back again. Phase 6 is a while ago. I think it's at least 4 or 5 years.
Right, but that was still under code, right? 4 or 5 years ago. So they would have been.
Maybe there's some leverage with respect to that.
To be a bargaining chip.
Yeah.
Be a bargaining chip, but you're saying we have to approve this at the 26th meeting.
Well, if you don't,
There's never going to be getting him to build more affordable housing.
right.
Isn't going to help this right now.
Well,
Once we approve these things, he's going to be in front of that planning board, and he's going to be trying to build this stuff as quickly as possible.
right.
So it doesn't, we can spend a lot of money on litigation, and all we'll have is what?
Well,
We're trying to change this. That ain't going to change this, what they're saying.
well, I don't think the settlement, and as you know, I've said it throughout, I don't think you're going to be able to modify the settlement agreement. The only way you'll be able.
I don't understand why, the River Road development wasn't considered, the developer that was in there, his contract with that property is gone. Why we didn't consider making that all affordable housing, and then we could have eliminated a lot of these things. Instead of 24, if we had 160 in there, we wouldn't have needed.
You're talking about the River Road redevelopment
Yeah.
project? That was part of the plan.
It's
That is-
part of the
yeah,
plan
yeah.
for some developer to build 160 units there with 24 affordable units.
Right.
No developer has a contract on that. We own the property outright. If Sarah had been consulted on this, because the first thing Sarah said was, well, why don't we just develop it and have all affordable housing? That's 160 out of these numbers here. That's a hell of a lot.
So what is
No market rate units is 100% municipal affordable projects. All right, so we could do it, but a number of towns have been collecting fees for a long time, so they have in magnitude of $500,000, $1 million. Some have a little more, some have less. But you can use some of that money to offset the costs, and then get involved with either a nonprofit like a church. I was involved with one in Highland Park as a planning witness for I believe it was about 12 units for veterans in an abandoned or vacated church that was for sale, but nobody was buying it, and they renovated that. There's something called low-interest tax credits. I believe the time to get those have passed for this year, but you can apply next year again. So if we can find a way, if we could get a number, and the higher the number goes, if you wanted to build, let's say, 150 veterans house in a high-rise on River Road, in that we have a couple of islands within the wetlands, which they were going to have 80 units on one and 80 units on the other.
Right.
If we could find some way to do that, the higher number, the higher the cost. So then, the higher the cost for the borough if you don't have a sponsor or a partner or, a nonprofit partner that you could utilize like a church. I've checked on that when we were going through this with the planning board. I couldn't find any churches that would even talk to me on this. And there are churches. There's the Methodist Church in Central Jersey. They do this a lot, but and I worked with one for the one in Highland Park, and they didn't have much to say about doing it with us. They're
along Washington, which kind of stay in because there are only 10, you would have completed a plan to add to the 2 Kaplan sites, and that would be, and the Luxury Point, which no one's questioning, and the Morgan Bluff, which no one's questioning. So you'd be done. You'd be putting 160 units, but then the borough has to finance that.
somehow.
And we have to share 100% of the cost for infrastructure as opposed to if the developer was coming in.
Correct.
So it's an important question of, this is vacant
course,
raw
dollars,
land
right.
at the side of the river.
Right.
What is the real cost of developing that, because we've got 100% of the burden, as opposed to, a private site like Cross Avenue would be developed, and we would have a very small percentage of the cost of
And
our
100% of the soft costs, which are unknown, could mean X amount, or could mean X plus exponential amount, because we don't know what the
Cross Avenue.
No, but,
Yeah.
I mean,
Listen, your obstacle is apparently Kaplan, all right? And guess what I'm telling you, is Kaplan's not going away. Kaplan is not going away. The only way that Kaplan is going to go away is if you make it financially lucrative for him to build somewhere else in town. All right? That's the bottom line. I've said it.
we'll be able to build residential there.
They will be able to build whatever the zoning is in place prior to them involved in this litigation.
206 units, which was residential.
Right.
206 units. Now, will they be obligated to make 20% of that?
If
Of
you-
the 206? They can't come back and say, oh, if you want us to do 20% of 206, you've got to increase our density.
That's up to the town. Yeah, that would be up to the town. If there was a planning board application submitted, now that may be a situation
They're not
where you don't,
obligated. They're
Well-
not obligated.
there is a state mandate to provide affordable housing, and there should be a set aside, and
And
that's,
how long has that mandate been?
listen, I'll give you my experience.
They're
Well-
not obligated.
There is a state mandate to provide affordable housing, and there should be a set aside, and
And
that's,
how long has that mandate been?
listen, I'll give you my experience. My experience in representing another planning board in this county for the last 20 years is that every residential large subdivision that's ever been built has had an affordable component. Listen, I'll give you my experience. My experience in representing affordable housing, and there should be a set aside, and
And
that's,
how long has that mandate been?
listen, I'll give you my experience. My experience.
So the state mandate has been telling planning boards to put this in.
Correct.
But ours continually did not. They just ignored it. They just did what they wanted to do. They're an autonomous board that this council has no say over, and they just did it, and now
Yet
we're
we have
sitting
to
here
vote
with
for
all
what they
with
do.
all the crap. Now, I'll just get back to Councilwoman Novak's question. I read
COA rules, we're in a mess.
yes.
Yes.
That's poor.
That
That's
is.
poor. For every citizen in this town, that is poor, and somebody should answer for it.
And at the last meeting you were at, I asked our attorney, Mike Dupont, to look into how many times, and now Larry also is going to look at
I know.
specifics. But I know Lemire. I was there 15. I did too. I lived there many years ago.
It's disgusting. I don't know what the word for it. I'm sorry.
There was over
It's disgusting.
1,800, 2,000 units. over it?
1873.
1,800 units, so 20%, 360 units.
And how one builder, and it seems to me, I'm being negative, how one builder can have so much control in a town. I don't need an answer. I mean, I can only imagine the answers.
Let me just reiterate for the public and on the record, the planning board, as was discussed, did not require it on several different applications. We're looking at it further to see how many. This council, no council before us had any appointing authority for planning board. There's only, for the public and on the record, the planning board, as was discussed, did not require it on several different applications. We're looking at it further to see how many. This council, no council before us had any appointing authority for planning board. There's only, only the position of the mayor can appoint the planning board.
Well,
So
I'm
we,
sorry to
this council
say,
is
you
now
do a
stuck
good
with this
job.
problem.
We have to approve this plan, but we had no,
Mayor can appoint the planning board.
Well,
So
I'm
we,
sorry
this
to
council
say,
is
you
now
do a
stuck
good
with this
job.
problem.
we have to approve.
For the public and on the record, the planning board, as was discussed, did not require it on several different applications. We're looking at it further to see how many. This council, no council before us had any appointing authority for planning board. There's only the position of the mayor can appoint the planning board.
Well,
So
I'm
we,
sorry
this
to
council
say,
is
you
now
do a
stuck
good
with this
job.
problem.
We have to approve this plan, but we had nothing to do with it.
You know, this has been poor planning, or somebody's got to answer, somebody should answer why they're in this mess. It's a terrible mess
Absolutely agree.
to ignore for all these years.
here.
It says
No,
the case.
I thought the same thing. If they're on their own, we gotta get somebody over them. But if there's laws that say, that, okay, that's life.
There's laws that govern the planning board. What book? What book of us? Big book. Pretty book, big book. That governs it.
So then they can do whatever they want. So I'm not saying anything, but can you request the planning board to provide the council with any information so that you know what they're doing?
Sure.
Well, we get planning board
Yeah, give
minutes.
us the minutes.
The minutes, but it's
They
every
recorded
time.
videos.
But again, most of it's after the fact,
Oh,
and
okay.
anything like this would have been discussed in closed session. And as council people, we don't even get those.
This has been poor planning, or somebody's got to answer, somebody should answer why they're in this mess. It's a terrible mess
Absolutely agree.
to ignore for all these years.
not here.
Yes. It's his board, he's a sitting member of
Want me
the
to
board.
call him?
I didn't know until
Just
today.
a quick question.
I'm sorry, once I get started,
Absolutely agree.
to ignore for all these years.
not here.
Yes. It's his board, he's a sitting member
Want
of
me
the
to
board.
call him?
I didn't know until
Just
today.
a quick question.
I'm sorry, once I get